A while back, I posted a video where I waxed nostalgia about my years of Godzilla merchandise, or lack thereof, which conveyed my hunger that still persists to this day, hence this channel. The video, titled Before Bandai, covered the late 70s to 80s era of searching for a satisfactory line of collectibles that would encompass Godzilla's film history at the point in time. Things changed, however, once the decade of the 90s arrived, and it started with a single acquisition. Sort of. During that point in my life, I was in my sophomore year in high school. Godzilla vs. Biollante had been released in Japan that prior year, and the word of its arrival reached me through a magazine called Monsters Attack, where I learned that this follow-up to the perceived underwhelming Godzilla 1985 would pit the king of the monsters against a brand new foe. This kickstarted my fairly dormant interest, despite the release of the Godzilla NES game and the small collection of home video films I began to purchase, already moving the needle. My brother had graduated the year prior, and one of his good friends, Bill, was set to stay in Japan for a period of time. Bill was a frequent guest at our house, and he was always great at fostering our shared interests, be they films, music, and ninja weapons. Before he departed, I placed a request that he could find me a Rodan figure of any sort. At this point in my life, the only tangible Godzilla figure was that rubber Imperial 1985 figure that was heavily circulating, still in random toy aisles. I was happy to have it, but I was always much more fascinated with his monster co-stars, specifically his flying foe turned friend. To me, Godzilla is like Superman. Everyone loves him because he's the main man and can do no wrong, but at the same time, I always preferred the Flash more. Peripheral characters to the main individual are intriguing because they aren't as inherently flawless as him. Anyways, Bill set off to the land of the rising sun, and I anxiously waited what he would be able to find. Little did I know, a very large door would soon be opening. Rodan, as I had mentioned countless times, was my first favorite of Toho's Kaiju, aside from Godzilla himself. The supersonic samurai of the skies was introduced to me not from his original 1956 classic film, but from the 1964's Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, and followed up with Destroy All Monsters from 1968. I eventually did see the original classic, and I was much more impressed with his look in that film as opposed to the Gonzo the Great look he had in the 60s. Even as a child, before I was actually conscious of each monster suit looking different from film to film, I could distinguish his design from his other appearances. As I've stated before, the only piece of Rodan merchandise I had ever owned was the Mattel Shogun-aligned Rodan toy from 1980. A fantastic toy, especially for a fan of said monster. But as time passed, and I grew up, and focused on other interests, my Rodan was eventually eschewed by my parents looking to do some spring cleaning. That was a painful thing to let go of, and I was certain that afterward I would never get a chance to have a rendition of Rodan again. But I was wrong, thankfully, as Bill had delivered years later, a figure that was, in my mind, sheer perfection. What I was not aware of was the line of vinyl figures he was a part of. Clearly, there was a tag that read Bandai and featured the promo still from Destroy All Monsters, but it wasn't indicative of any vast line of characters. I wouldn't allow myself to even dream it, having been deprived all those years prior. But this video is part 1, so of course. Anyways, let's talk about this extraordinary 8-inch vinyl figure, which I briefly compared to in the 2023 Playmates Renditions review. My first impression of this figure was, oh wow, it was such a level of quality that was higher above the Imperial figure of Godzilla that I had, right down to all the textures that were all over the body, just like you can see here. This guy, he is molded in a nice rust brown reddish vinyl. It's very, very true to his on-screen appearance, especially in his 1956 film, which this figure is based off of. Right here you get some gold sprays on his chest, his fingers, on both sides, on his beak. Looks really nice, even though it's just a wild spray. Even on the toes you get this gold spray. It looks really good. I didn't mind it back then, still don't mind it. On the back side you get this gold like line right down his back. It's almost like a weird spinal thing, and then you get these metallic green sprays, which I still don't know where that comes from. I've heard some people say it's on the flying model from the movie, but it's barely visible in film, so it's just an enigma. But look at the details on this thing. The eye is a dark pit black. It gives him some sort of, mysterious menace to him. It's just a great presentation of the classic original flying monster. I'm just wowed by it. I'm still wowed by this figure like I was when I first had it in hand. Now, turning it around, you can see that there's all kinds of textures on the body. Actually, let's just start with the front right here and give this thing a closer look. Rodan stands really well on his own. Look at these wings right here. Inside the upper part, you get this kind of bumpy, coarse texture, and then it turns into this kind of pleated molding, and then the pleats turn into bigger pleated wing areas towards the closer they get to the body and the legs. And the legs have like this connector, and you get the ridges on the legs. You see them on both sides. They almost go down to each toe. They kind of like split off and formulate each toe. There's nothing on the bottom but the indicia, and he's got this weird heel. It looks like Rodan wears heels. It's funny. Going back up, we're going to take a look at the face. The face is sculpted excellent. Look at that. You got all these little bumps and all kinds of grooves in his face. That beak, that nostril area of the nose, just looks really good. And then you get that mouth line that just goes almost all the way back to his skull. Very, very nice. The claws, look at them. Those little 3-fingered claws right there, each, topped off with a nail. You can almost see where the thumb goes inside the suit. It's just crazy to me. This figure is well done. Look at the neck creases from almost like the costume was bunching at the neck where the suit actor's head would be. The back still has some more of that kind of sandpapery, gravelly texture, and then it ends in this nice flat tail at the end. Very shiny and glossy in some areas with the vinyl. Very nice, very nice. And you get these little heel spurs at the end, they're little nubs, and then the same things happen from the backside as they are in the front. Beautiful figure. All in all, still a gorgeous figure. Holds up really well to this day. I know that Playmates had done their version of it, but this still really is kind of on the same tier as modern day. Now, with articulation, Rodan has head movement, but it's very tight. You can just barely get him to turn his head from side to side. It takes a little effort, and it's always been like that on my copy, but I don't know if that's the same on everybody's, but it's still in place. But the wings you can actually position. They're posable. Now, you don't see this anymore, not like to this level. And you would think with like modern day movie monster series, you would have more articulation with the engineering that's out there. But no, this is just fantastic. You can get all kinds of expressive movement. You can make him look like he's just, wreaking havoc in cities, just waving his wings around like he does in his original movie. So this was a huge wow. I mean, I'm still in awe of this figure. I mean, look at this guy. I never thought I would have a tangible replica of something outside of a garage kit model, not a vinyl toy, obviously. So this gets high marks. I mean, like I said, some movement is limited. Obviously, his legs are too small for any kind of posability, but just having the wings to move is just, it's dumbfounding. But of course, you can see over time the vinyl does kind of start to warp a little bit from usage of it. It does make it looser, so I don't try to do it too often. Still, fantastic figure. Now, let's look at comparisons. Now, I've talked ad nauseum about this guy, the Playmates Rodan from 2023, and at first glance you could look at them both and say they're almost the same exact figure, but obviously there's differences. The Playmates, obviously, scale-wise, is a little bit smaller. He lines up better with your Movie Monster series figures, but he also has a lot of life breathed in him just by the posability of the head. Swivels really at ease, but he has no movement in the wings. He's got no movement in the legs, but he has like the same paint apps almost. He's got that same green and gold like spine thing that's still an enigma to me. I don't know what the hell that is, but he's cool because obviously they took a little extra mile to give him a bit of a alternate pose. The wing kind of curled down, the legs spread out more, the mouth open. They're nice alternating ideas of Rodan. Now, Mothra Larva is a figure that followed the acquisition of this Rodan. My brother picked this up at my urging at a convention in Connecticut before we moved out to California, and it was at sale at somebody's table. They had a few other Bandais. I think they had the Mosu Goji one that was there, but this one was all my brother was willing to put money down for. But this thing is also another prime example of Bandai sculpting of that era. Now, that's the thing I would have to say about Bandai figures from that era. It's a very uneven lot. These two are exemplify some of their highest quality, and in my next review, you're going to see two more that also are in that same realm. Now, just as closing thoughts, I think that this figure is beyond, it's just a great figure. Let me just say it like that. I know I've been gushing about this the entire review. There's really no need to do any kind of punch rating from Jet Jaguar because, quite frankly, I think this is a classic. A classic remains a classic, and you should always, respect it in that sense. Oh, hey, JJ, what's going on, man? I did mention to our audience that you basically have a day off, a holiday for sakes. You don't have to do any kind of punching today. No rating needed. This guy obviously is just on a pinnacle that you don't need to put your hands on. Yeah, but maybe you have some other things you'd like to do. Well, I know you haven't been in any movies lately, but there's that rumor that you'll be showing up in Godzilla X Kong Supernova, right? That silly rumor. Don't get mad. I mean, it's just you're just not needed. It's just not the type of review. Okay, well, go ahead, man. We'll carry on. All kidding aside, this series is going to eschew some of the typical things I do. Comment down below. Tell me what you think of this figure. Let me know your thoughts on this version of Rodan. If you have him, do you want him? What's your thoughts? Do you think it's just kind of not in your wheelhouse? Because obviously there's wild color sprays, like I pointed out. He's got some posability, but it's limited. I will be back with my next chapter of the back in the 90s, the Godzilla collection. I'll be featuring two more acquisitions that followed up, and I'll see you in the next one.